Hello my fellow fountain pen enthusiasts. I've got another pen review here, and today we're going to take a look at the Jinhao 9035 is what I was able to find out the model number. This is the Jinhao wooden fountain pen, or at least that's what I'm going to call it. This finish right here is the rose wood finish. I think it's a very pretty finish. I've only got 3 wooden fountain pens now. I have, of course, my Moonman M6. I also have a Wing Sung that is Wing Sung 7250. And I will do some comparisons with those 2 pens as far as the wood, the finish, and just obviously kind of compare the quality a little bit to the Moonman M6. Now, I did purchase this pen from Bobby's eBay store. That's Office Supplies pen on eBay. And this did come with a specialty nib grind. So it's one of the reasons why I ordered it. Now, these pens are kind of really being sold kind of all over the place. You can actually get this pen for under $10, which I think is any fountain pen that writes well or has a decent build quality is great if it's under $10. This one, however, I did pay more for the specialty nib. So I paid about $19.20. So let's find out if the pen is actually worth that price point. So taking a look at the actual pen here, we notice that it's a very kind of understated design, very similar with a lot of wooden fountain pens. It's kind of what you're getting generally when you buy a wooden fountain pen. So there's no metal or nothing up on the cap finial, just a nice rounded design, kind of a torpedo or cigar shaped fountain pen. You've got kind of a classic style clip here with the ball design. You know, it's a little bit stiff, but with that, you know, ball design, usually it will slide in and out of materials very easily, which this one does. It slides in and out of just about everything I put it in so far. And then, of course, we see up at the top there, we've got that Jinhao chariot. Probably not totally coming through on the video, but you can kind of see that. So one of Jinhao's markings. Down here we see that we've got some reinforcement on the cap here with this metal piece. I actually like the fact that they put that there just to kind of help reinforce. The one thing that is I wonder how much damage though over time this piece right here can do to the finish of the wood. And we'll kind of take a look at that when I uncap the pen here in a moment. And then tapering down to the end of the pen, of course, or moving down to the end of the pen, it just tapers down just a little bit, and then of course has the rounded end there. Now, because this is made out of wood, of course there's got to be some blemishes here and there. I think that adds to the character of the pen. When you're buying a wood fountain pen, I don't think you should expect that the finish be 100% perfect. However, I do think this one is rather nice. You know, for a pen that generally is going to go for around $10, I think the overall finish of this pen is somewhat exceptional from that perspective. Now, as far as uncapping the pen, there's 1 full turn. We're at a quarter, a half. So about 1 3/4 turn to uncap. Now, let's take a look at the inner cap first. So again, we can see that there's metal here. Now the metal band goes down a little bit farther. And from what I can tell inside of there, we've got plastic threads. And get a bore light here, kind of see down in there. But those threads, you may not be able to tell in the video as of right now, but they are plastic. Now one thing I'm not a huge fan of, and you might be able to see it down in there, come on, focus, is we actually have a metal screw in there that's holding this clip together. So over time, of course, that could corrode, you know, getting ink in there, cleaning it out potentially, it could cause some corrosion. So just something to note. And there is somewhat of a cap liner there. Now, I have not had any issues with this nib drying out, but that cap liner is not covering where the screw is at. So again, there could be issues over time, but only time will tell with that. Now, taking a look at the pen here, and this is kind of where I was talking about with this metal piece. I've noticed already that there is a kind of, it looks like some of the finish right here has already been worn off. And I do think that that has contributed to this metal piece. And for instance, when I recap, you can see how it kind of hits there. And then as you turn again, that's covered up. So a little bit of a, don't know if you could say, well, we'll say design fall, so to speak. I do think that that might be something that other people may see within their pins as well. Now, the threads here are machined nicely. They're not, overly sharp or anything. The section is of a decent girth and size. It doesn't really taper down. It's fairly straight and just flares out at the end. Fairly, pretty comfortable pin, truthfully, in my opinion, to hold. Doesn't have a tremendous amount of weight to it, but it does feel comfortable overall. As far as posting goes, this is a pin that posts very nice, posts securely and deeply, and it's well balanced. So if it's a pin that you're interested in, you've got large hands, this is a pin that you can definitely post easily, and it's not coming off or anything like that. And I think it's a very nice feeling pin when you post it. Now, taking a look at the nib. So as you can tell, we don't have a Jinhao nib in here. Now, you may already kind of be able to tell what type of nib this is. So this is Bobby's Architect nib. So that's the one I ordered. The reason why I paid $19.20 for it is because of that nib. Of course, you've got your kind of standard Jinhao stamped feed there. Their feeds always work very well. And then, of course, this pin is a cartridge converter filler. Got nice Jinhao logo right here on the inside part of the collar, and then there you can see the actual designation for the model number 9035. And then I like how they have an actual rubber O-ring here. It definitely helps to seal this up whenever you put the barrel back on. You kind of feel just a little bit of tension there at the end, and that last like quarter turn really kind of torques that down really nice. So all in all, that's the pin. I think it's definitely got some nice design characteristics to it. Let's do some actual comparisons for sizing purposes and everything to some other fountain pins that some of you may own. All right, so here we see 4 different fountain pins, and I went in, of course, through the usual Pilot Metropolitan in here just for general purpose, because I know it's a popular fountain pen that a lot of people own. But starting from the bottom and working our way to the top, we have the Jinhao 9035. We have the Moonman M6 fountain pen. We have the Wingsung 7250. I can't remember that number. And then up here we have the Pilot Metropolitan. So of course I have these two in here because they're both wooden fountain pens. This is the Moonman M6, and very nice natural wood color. I know it has a special name, and of course the name has seemed to leave my brain at this point. But I think both of these pins have similar design characteristics in the sense that of their overall shape and just kind of how the cap, it's kind of just a cap and a clipless design, or I'm sorry, clip type design, no other metal pieces on it whatsoever. This one here, of course, the Wingsung definitely takes on its own design element with a barrel that is wooden and then a brass actual cap up here and everything else. And then of course Pilot Metropolitan's the one different design that we see here. Now, let's take a look at these pins in their uncapped form and kind of see what they look like, compare sections, nibs, and everything else. All right, so here we see all 4 pins uncapped, and we'll notice that the M6 and the Jinhao are size-wise are very similar in overall length. Now, the Wingsung is much longer than these two, and I think part of that is, the section is very elongated. It does taper down, but I think this pin is not a pin that is made to post. And so I think that, one of the design elements of having this longer kind of pin body makes it easier to where it will fit in a lot of people's hands. Now, these two, you'll notice that the sections are somewhat similar. The nib sizes are going to be a little bit similar as well on the overall size of the nib. The Moonman definitely by the naked eye looks larger as far as the nib goes. Kind of give you an up close look between the two sections. Now from a girth perspective, the M6 is definitely a larger section. There is a slight step down kind of really to both of them, but both, it's not very noticeable in my opinion. It's not uncomfortable. They're both easy to hold and write with. I think unposted, but they both do post technically. So you can post both of them. All of these pins are all cartridge converter fountain pins. You know, this Wing Sung here, you know, has a similar section somewhat to the Pilot here, in the sense that they both kind of just taper down and then flare out at the end. This is of course a brass section. It's actually doesn't really have any texture on it, but it really doesn't feel bad in the hand. It's actually a fairly comfortable pin to write with. Not a huge fan of the nib on this pin as far as the writing experience goes, but everything else with the pin is fine. So there you kind of see all 4 pins, kind of looking at the sections and the nibs. Now let's see them posted, just to kind of give an idea if you're somebody that likes to post your pin. All right, so here we see all 4 pins posted. You'll notice that the Jinhao and the Moonman are both about the same in length. The Jinhao does post a little bit more securely and deeply. The Moonman has a tendency, like some other cigar or torpedo-shaped pins, some of them don't post very well. The Pilot Metropolitan kind of, I think, fits into that category. How the cap kind of sometimes will post crooked or something like that. The Moonman has that same issue. You know, when you hold this pin, I think that the Jinhao is definitely comfortable. I don't have any issues with it from a posting perspective. The one thing I will say, the Moonman here has the actual threads are cut into the cap itself. So you don't have a metal cap liner in there, or metal threads, for instance, or plastic threads. So probably a little bit less likely to create issues on the actual barrel, but no reinforcement. So that can also be a downside. Whereas this one has the metal piece here and the plastic threads, which potentially can do some damage to your barrel over time, but you're probably not going to have issues with this cracking because from putting tension on the material. So there you kind of see the pins posted though. Gives you an idea for what it looks like versus the Pilot Metropolitan. Both pins, like I said, they post. They're somewhat comfortable right with posted. They're not back heavy. The Jinhao here is actually very well balanced. I don't have any issues with this pin from a posting perspective. This is a pin that actually is very comfortable posting with. All right, so up next we will put some weights and measurements onto the screen for you, and then of course we'll do a writing sample next, and then I'll finish up from there. All right, so we are back for the writing sample, and then of course I'll finish up with kind of my final thoughts and verdict on the pen. Now the ink that I'm going to use for this writing sample is a new ink that I just picked up. I actually got this off of Amazon, and I paid I think only like $10 for this. But it's a 30 milliliter bottle, so a decent sized bottle. Montverde Amethyst ink, a nice purple ink. I don't know what it is with me and purple ink, but I do like my purple inks. All right, so as I stated before, this is an Architect nib. So this is the, can't spell, but this is the Jinhao 9035. And as I stated before, we have an Architect nib. I'm just going to put a nib in this pen. Do an actual writing sample here for you. There you go. All right, so remember on an Architect nib, it's kind of like a reverse stub where your downstrokes are going to be finer and your cross strokes are going to be wider. You can kind of see that here. So if I'm drawing that, I've noticed at certain angles it's more pronounced than others. So you'll notice these downstrokes are going to be a little bit finer, whereas that cross stroke's a little bit wider. The one thing I'll say is this pen or this nib is nice and smooth. I really like it. Do kind of a quick wetness test real quick. You know, it's got decently wet. Reverse writing can kind of get like an extra fine line out of this. It's actually not overly scratchy either. And the ink definitely looks different. Somewhat of a wet writer. I would definitely say that the nib is wet. I think it works well with this ink. I don't have any complaints or issues there. Really like this amethyst ink. I think it's very attractive ink. But overall, I actually really like this nib. That's me from the angle that I'm holding the actual pen. But I haven't had any issues with it. It writes well overall. I actually been enjoying using this pen. All right, so now we'll do our final thoughts and kind of do like a rating, for instance. So the first thing is the overall design of the pen and kind of what rating I would give the overall design. So what falls underneath the design element, you know, aesthetics is going to be part of that. And really kind of talking about the aesthetics. I give the pen, I'm going to do it on a scale of 1 to 5, and I'm going to give it a 4. I actually like the design of this pen, even though it's very minimalistic. I have, ever since the Moonman M6, this kind of fits in that same category. I kind of like this design. It's a bit understated, but I think it works well. I think it's attractive in my opinion. So I'm going to give it a 4 from a design perspective. Now, as far as writing experience, I am going to give the pen a 4.5. And I'm giving it a little bit higher on the 4.5 scale. And the reason why is I really like this nib. I haven't had any issues with it. I like the feel of the pen. The section for me is comfortable to hold. It's not an overly heavy pen by any means whatsoever. Now, if you want a pen that is very, you know, weighs a lot, this is not the pen for you. It's not going to weigh a lot, as you could see in the weight in the previous screen, but I really have enjoyed the writing experience. Now, if you put just a regular Jinhao nib in here, would I probably give it a 4.5? Probably not. Probably maybe like a 3.5 to a 4. I'm not going to say I wouldn't give it a 4, but I really enjoy this Architect nib that's in here. Now, as far as overall build quality, and this is kind of just comparing to other, you know, pens, I'm going to give it a 3.5. And I'm going to go kind of, I mean, it could be, I'm going to say a 3.5. The reason why on build quality is the fact that we've, you know, already have some issues with the barrel here. I still think that's kind of somewhat of a design flaw with the pen, and the fact that I'm pretty sure that this actual metal liner, it's nice because it's going to reinforce the cap over time to keep this probably from cracking, but it's also going to kind of create scratches on your barrel. So I'm going to give it a 3.5. Everything else about the pen, the converter works well, the nib, the feed, everything else works very well. It caps and uncaps, doesn't grind or anything, no cross-threading issues, nothing like that, but I think a 3.5 is fair. Now, as far as the wow experience, that is really just how does the pen make me feel? Do I enjoy writing with it? It's a pen that I'm going to want to keep inked up for quite a while. I'm going to give it a 4. I think this will be a pen that will be in my rotation for quite a while. I enjoy using it. Not quite a 4.5 or a 5, for instance, but I definitely do enjoy using this pen quite a bit. The nib honestly might stay in my rotation longer than the pen. I may even put this nib in another fountain pen just because I'll enjoy using that. So my overall rating for the pen, this one's kind of tough, but I'm going to give it a 4. I'm going to give it a 4. Like I said, the only issue I have with the pen is just that issue with the cap and barrel kind of scratching. But I think an overall rating of 4. I'm not going like 4.1s and 4.2s. It's either 4, 4.5, 5. So I'm just going to go halves. But I think an overall rating of a 4 is fair enough for this pen. Really do enjoy it. I think if you get this pen with the Architect grind or one of Bobby's other grinds, I think you'd probably enjoy it. I mean, really, just with the standard Jinhao nib, it would probably be, in my opinion, still be a very nice fountain pen to own, especially under $10. You can't beat that. So, hope everybody enjoyed this review. Until next time, I'll see you later. Oh, you know what? Before I go, for those of you that don't follow me on Instagram, I've already posted pictures of this, but this will be an upcoming review. I don't know if it'll be my next one, but it will be upcoming. But I got this in. This is the Fully One 017. Very, very attractive pen. But that will be an upcoming review. I've got some other pens I want to review as well. And then I am working currently, right now, on a pen news video as well. Hopefully be up shortly, or maybe a few days after this review is up. So everyone, please take care out there. Hope you all are being safe. Until next time, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.